let's get into what's happening in Mexico, specifically in the state of Michoacan. It's no news to anybody that the drug war and the drug cartels, which are often supported by the United States government through operations like Operation Fast and Furious, spreading guns and weapons down there to these dangerous cartels. Violence has erupted along the border of the United States and Mexico, and along with that, corruption has exploded. The Mexican government, there are large parts of their country that they really can't control and they don't even bother going into, where the communities are left to defend themselves. And that's exactly what has happened. Since 2006, there's been an explosion of violence related to drug cartels, and a number of communities have decided to take up arms and form autodefensas, which are basically self-defense community squads that will take up arms or whatever weapons they can and defend themselves against the dangerous cartels. Now, this has received international media attention in the past year because in 2013 in Michoacan, a number of the communities actually took over their towns. They kicked out police, they kicked out corrupt government officials, started just taking care of themselves. The cartels fought back. There's been a number of battles between the community defense and the cartels, and in some cases, the government accuses the community defense alternatives of actually being part of the cartels and just re-infiltrating. What I want to look at tonight is if this offers us a possible alternative to the growing police state here in the United States. Now, what's happened in Michoacan has come as a result of poverty, the government not being able to help out, violence, and corruption. In the United States, we have similar problems, but they're not so over rampant where people are necessarily ready to take up arms and push out the police or the government officials. But there are some places in the United States where this might actually work. And looking forward at possible economic downturn, economic collapse, and also recognizing the militarization of the police that's happening in this state, it might be worth looking at. So in Detroit, one group has been around for the last 20 years, started out as a self-defense training center, a bodyguard training center. It's known as Detroit Threat Management, and the bodyguards are known as Vipers. They have actually been able to provide a service to the people of Detroit that the Detroit Police Department has been unavailable to do. Detroit Police Department got a lot of crap for having response times, emergency response times, as long as 58 minutes. Whenever seconds count, police are only minutes away. In this case, they're hours away. Now, while Detroit PD struggles to protect its city from violence and criminals that are all over the place now, Detroit Threat Management has stepped in and been able to offer services, sometimes free services, to the most poor in the city who can't even afford it, including protecting domestic violence victims from harm, walking old ladies to their cars, all kinds of things. They say that they have large corporate clients that they do bodyguard work for, and it allows them to offer lower prices to the community, and that is their main aim. And in Mexico, it's coming out of a response to the violence and out of a necessity. In Detroit, it's also coming out of a necessity where the people are able to offer an alternative. And the positive thing about this is that the Detroit police chief has actually encouraged more people to start taking up self-defense and to arm themselves. And he says he's not encouraging vigilantism, but what he's encouraging is to people to not be victims. So this is a positive thing that's coming out of a negative situation. In Mexico, in the town of Cheran, we have an example of indigenous resistance, indigenous community defense that could possibly work for us in the United States. In Cheran, they have come together to push off the cartels who have been coming in and logging their forests, illegally logging their forests, and they were getting no help from the government, so they initially were fighting them off with sticks and throwing stones at them. There was old ladies who were part of the community defense, but now over the past couple of years it's evolved to where they have, younger men and women who are standing guard around the forest and trying to keep anyone out there. And the great thing about this, and the way that this can work to our advantage, is they are actually subordinate to the community. So the community comes together and they make decisions. Everybody has a voice and they make decisions, and the police, the community defense, listens to them. So their structure is actually completely opposite of what we typically see in the United States and in most countries around the world, where the police have this upper hand, and the police are seen as superior to the average person. I believe what's happening in Detroit with Detroit threat management and what's happening in Mexico with the indigenous communities deciding to take up arms and to defend themselves, and specifically to use older models of this. They're not just running rampant. There's definitely going to be some crime and some problems. This is not a perfect situation. Last week we talked about water privatization. This week we're talking about privatizing the police force. And many people who fear privatization of the police forces think that it's just going to end up being a bunch of armed gangs competing. We sort of already have that. We have the government, and we have this armed gang that dresses in blue or black depending on your city, and they can come into your home, they can shoot your dogs, they can shoot you, they can beat you on the street, they can pull out shotguns on you, they can arrest you illegally, they can plant drugs on you, they can rape you, they can do all kinds of things, and very rarely are they given punishments. I mean, these officers here in Houston, where I'm at, officers kill people and get away with it. As in Detroit, if your funding and your money is dependent on the people and dependent on the way that you treat them, then you're going to treat them better, because people won't pay for Detroit threat management services if they don't feel safer. They have made the city feel safer. The police are actually encouraging them. They've received awards from city council. In Mexico, I believe that we can take some of the examples they have there of how indigenous communities have learned to work together and to have smaller communities and to have a form of governance that allows each individual to have a voice and defend our communities better. Whether or not you believe in privatization of the police force, it's obvious that we need to seek solutions now, because the police in this country are becoming more and more militarized every single day that passes, and it's not going to stop unless we find a solution. Let's go this corner. Let's go this corner over here. How you doing?